Trustees, go ahead.
Welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees of September 28th. And I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Arlene, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. Francis
Here.
Bill Taylor,
Here.
Jim Grimes, John Aldred,
Here.
Ben Dollinger.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. My camera's not working. Just checking. Thanks.
Rick Drew,
Here.
Tim Garneau,
Here.
Mike Martinson, Susan McGraw-Heber.
Here.
Okay. I think that's everyone. I didn't hear Jim or Mike. I'll check in a little while.
Okay. Let's start with, okay, I guess public comment. Jennifer Brew, 245 Shore Road. Is Jennifer here?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jen.
Hi. Many of you I know and some I don't. So my name's Jennifer Brew, and I've been a resident in Amagansett for 15 years and very happy to have the opportunity to be a part of Lazy Point. I believe all my paperwork is in place, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Just wanted to introduce myself.
Good. I'm glad you came in tonight, Jennifer. Thank you.
I'm glad I figured it out.
Yeah, I think you have everything in. Arlene has been on top of this, letting us know. So if anybody has any questions, I invited Jennifer to come in and introduce herself. And since, sorry?
Chris Carrillo's reviewed the paperwork. We have a tax bill, a voter registration, driver's license. Everything is in order for residents. Copy of the contract. But we'll wait for Chris Carrillo. He gives the fund.
Thanks, Arlene. And hi, Jennifer. Chris here. How are you?
Hello.
Can you hear me? I'm having some technical difficulties, but
Yes.
okay, good. Well, nice to see you and everybody. Yes, I did review the paperwork and all appears to be in order for this.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you explain why Jennifer's here, please?
Sure. Jennifer's here.
Yeah, thank you.
Jennifer's here to discuss a purchase of or assignment of a lease at a Point property. So she's here today to discuss that, and she's already submitted all of her paperwork, which Arlene mentioned, and we've had a chance to review it, and everything appears to be in order for the trustees to approve that transfer.
If we've got all the paperwork and nobody has any questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
And I'll second that.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Arlene, please.
Okay. Francis Fox,
Yes.
Bill Taylor,
Yes.
Jim Grimes,
Yes.
John Aldred,
Yes.
Ben Dollinger,
Yes.
Rick Drew,
Yes.
Jim Garneau, and Mike Martinson. May not be here yet. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess we have a new leasee.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Hey, anybody have anything else on this?
Do you think we're gonna talk to him?
Oh,
No?
I didn't call Susan McGraw, but sorry, Susan, but you did second.
I seconded it, and yes, if you need another vote of hand here, yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, Chair.
You down at Lazy Point?
Absolutely.
Okay, next on public comment, we have Madeline Novalis, Whalen Filer.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And so I'm Madeline Narvillis, and I know you all know Tyler Armstrong.
Tyler, how are you?
We're actually representing the applicants tonight through Landmarks, not Wayland Filer. But anyway, that's neither here nor
Okay.
there, I guess, for your purposes. This is an application for the repair to a bulkhead and the installation of a floating dock at the property located at 275 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek. And we would ask for this evening that you focus on the bulkhead repair. That is really our priority. This bulkhead is in poor shape and starting to fall into the water. So while we also have the application into you for the installation of a floating dock, the town actually asked us to bifurcate this application so that we would be receiving an expedited NRSP for the bulkhead repair so that we can get that going sooner and then worry about the dock. So just for your information and background. As I mentioned, it's at 275 3 Mile Harbor. The tax map number for the record is 375 132.2. The subject property is located on 3 Mile Harbor with 206 linear feet of frontage along the harbor. It's the property is a large lot. It's 2.3 acres. And the applicants also own the property, which is located directly to the north, which is 2.1 acres. So this property is entirely bulkheaded along the waterfront, as are most of the properties in this neighborhood. And as a project, the applicants were trying very hard to make sure that their seasonal floating dock would not diminish the accessibility or navigability for other users of 3 Mile Harbor. And it will provide the family, which is John McGinn and Carrie Davis, with the opportunity for boating, kayaking, and other water sports. So you have in your packet a survey by David Saskis, as well as a site plan that was prepared by engineer Drew Bennett. I'm going to ask you to please refer to the site plan because it shows the dock in the location that it's currently being proposed. We have actually been working on this between 4 and 5 years at this point. There have been several iterations of dock location, and we've finally reached a place that we think is the best placement. But we've yet to receive the survey that we'll be forwarding to you that shows the dock in the current proposed location. It is, however, on the site plan. So that position was chosen to reach optimum water depths. And just to give a little background, I'm sure you all know this, but this is a neighborhood where there are large commercial marinas. Directly to the north of the property is the East Hampton Point Marina, as well as Duck Creek Marina. To the south is the Shagwan Marina. And to the direct south of this lot is another large lot 3.7 acres, which is owned by Charlie Martyr, which he moors a large boat, which is on pilings at that location, which extend over 100-foot seaward. So in terms of any adverse effects, we don't expect installation of a floating dock to adversely impact any tidal wetlands, and it was designed with this concern in mind.
It won't hinder navigability of the waterway because, you know, there are certainly other coastal structures that extend further out into the water than what's proposed here.
So even though we're going to ask you to focus on the bulkhead tonight, I am just going to quickly run through the dock as far as its parts, length.
We want to get the discussion going on the dock and hopefully make some major headway on the bulkhead, even hopefully get some approval in place for the bulkhead as it is, you know, in danger of failing at this point. So, you know, initially the idea was to do the dock and bulkhead together. At this point, the bulkhead's gone into a state of disrepair, which you can see in the photos. And we met John and Ben on site last week, and they checked out the dock with us. And the photos are in the file if you want to see. There's 3 large holes in the dock face now. It's a pretty, sorry, the bulkhead face now. So it's an old wooden bulkhead.
Is there any way, excuse me, is there any way to share these photos to the other members? I haven't seen that. I'm not on that committee, but I think probably some of the other board members are probably in the same sort of shortfall.
Jim, I don't have electronic copies of the photos, but I do have an electronic copy of the site plan. I don't know if Tyler and Maddie, you have any photos?
Yeah, we have the photos electronically. We have emailed them to, I think, a few of you and Arlene before. But if nobody has them handy, we can show them if
yeah, be helpful. You know, it might be helpful because it sounds like you're looking to get a vote on this tonight, and it's going to be pretty hard to do that if nobody can see them.
Sure. I get that, Jim. Absolutely.
So
let me see if I can work on that here.
The dock is going to consist of 3 parts, as shown in the plans that we submitted, and which hopefully we will be able to bring up for you all to look at. It's a floating dock 4 feet wide and 24 feet long, a catwalk which is 4 feet wide and 40 feet long, and an aluminum ramp 3 feet wide and 20 feet long. So the ramp is going to rest on the floating dock with an overlap of about 4 feet, and the wheels on the ramp are going to allow it to move with the tides. So the total length of the dock will be 80 feet during its seasonal use. The ramp and floating dock are going to be constructed with untreated materials, as well as through flow decking, reducing any shading of bottomlands. And the ramp and floating dock will be removed during winter months and replaced each spring. Going into the bulkhead a little bit, while Tyler's looking to bring up some photos for you, and then we can screen share them. The repair is proposed to be done in place. Okay,
You're fine.
Maddie,
you have to screen share in order for them to see that.
I will when you're ready.
Okay, all right.
Maddie,
So, yes.
if I could just interject for a minute, the bulkhead is going to be replaced.
Correct.
Removed and replaced. So.
Yes.
So this is not just a simple repair. You're looking to replace this.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, it's removal and replacement in place.
So we're also looking to connect the bulkhead to the neighbor's bulkhead, which was also constructed by Costello Marine Contracting. The 2 are going to be the same height, but the applicant's bulkhead will have face pilings additionally because the slope is steeper. We are expecting to receive the expedited natural resources special permit from the town next week just for the bulkhead repair.
Okay. Hey, Maddie, is the bulkhead being proposed to be replaced at its present elevation, or are you taking
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So you're not taking advantage of an 18-inch
No.
on this.
No, mostly because Jim, the neighbor Bud Levinson.
Yep. Yeah, I know the property well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so he replaced his bulkhead, and this owner wanted to basically match that one as much as possible.
Yeah,
So
because I think
I-
this is actually Bud Levinson's other old house, correct?
right, yeah, the whole these two parcels and two other ones were once a larger parcel that was subdivided
Yeah.
at a
Okay.
certain point.
Yeah, I know this property really well. Now, what are your materials that you're replacing the bulkhead with?
ahead.
Yeah, here. Well, it's green heart pilings, shore guard, vinyl sheathing,
Okay.
950 shore guard, green heart caps, clamp. There's a backing system with timbered dead men. And I wish we could give Jim the site plan. Because Jim, if you could see the site plan, you could.
I can
Actually, if you want to send it to
Email
me,
it over to him.
I can
Hold on.
share it. I can share it if you want me to put it on the screen.
Oh, why
There
don't
you
we
go.
do
Yeah, I
that?
could do that too. I'll email it to you, Jim, and John, if you want to bring it up, I'll email it to Jim at the same time. And we get the best of both worlds.
Can you see it?
Yep. Can we? Is there a detail on the? Is there a detail on this that shows your
Yeah, there's
construction
a whole
detail?
set.
This is the construction detail, but you have to turn your head sideways to look at it.
Yeah, John, you gotta
rotate it.
rotate these things.
What's that?
I can see it pretty clearly.
The other thing is that we do have a construction protocol that was supplied by Costello because the town specifically asked for that for the expedited NRSP. So,
If
I
you
don't
want,
know.
you have a narrative on the construction protocol.
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
that was emailed to John, Ben, and Arlene when we got it last week. So we just got that in from Costello. So it wasn't able to get submitted with the original application. But the original application, we had an estimate from Costello for the bulkhead work, which is in the trustee file,
All right.
and a dock estimate as well.
The bulk of the work will be done from the harbor with a barge and a crane. There'll be some excavator work behind the bulkhead to make room for the dead men and remove some of the piling material.
Yeah, remove the existing backing system, basically.
Right.
So they need the excavator to get in there, pull up the existing backing system, and they'll excavate just as much as needed to get that backing system out.
also any backfill needed is going to be composed of clean, locally sourced sand is estimated to be less than 130 cubic yards.
But they really hope to, what I've talked to Jack Costello about, he's going to reuse all the existing material on site. And if they need anything more, they'll have it trucked in with a dump truck. It'll be clean local fill.
Hey
But
guys,
they don't tend to really need.
in your
a lot more.
construction narrative, do you have provisions of dealing, sediment booms?
Yep. In
Yeah.
water silt boom.
Okay.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, we got Costello to do that. I guess some jobs up in the North Fork, they don't do it, but we were pretty adamant about that. So
Okay, I was just, listen, these are the things that typically are going to be asked for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Realistically, when are you looking to start this thing?
I talked to Jack today to ask him about that. He said at some point, this winter. It's a little vague.
Okay.
Their thing is, ASAP is the short answer, Jim.
Okay.
But the long answer is that whenever the permits are in, Jack Costello was going to put it on the schedule, and at that point, it falls where it falls on his schedule. But
All right.
definitely this winter.
You're basically moments away from a town permit.
Yes.
Yes.
You have a DEC permit in
Yes.
hand.
Yes, we do.
We have the DEC permit for the bulkhead and the dock.
I don't know whether, let's maybe hear from some of our other board members as to what their feelings on whether they'd be comfortable voting on this tonight or whether they'd like to have the opportunity to look this over.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to just mention is that as they mentioned, they do have a DC permit. They'll be getting the expedited natural resource special permit shortly.
Probably next week.
What is the status of that permit? Has it been issued or is it pending a formal vote?
It's an expedited, it's an administrative permit. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't need a hearing.
Yeah.
The planning department had asked us only to send in a construction protocol. It was the only thing they were missing. I spoke to Eleni today, the planner. She said that they reviewed the protocol today and that they thought it looked great, so that we could expect to possibly get the permit as early as next week.
Well, I spoke to Eleni as well. One question I had for her was what requirements they would impose for the revegetation.
Right.
The proposal is to revegetate with native materials, but there's no specifications. But the expedited permit, in my understanding, will require a revegetation plan.
Yes. We volunteered to provide such plan. We don't have the plan set quite yet. We need to let the applicant know that he can actually start the work. But these are people who have voluntarily installed as you saw, a 10-foot vegetative buffer on their property, and they will only take out any non-natives, replant with natives, and we'll have that work ready to go prior to any of the repair, as far as being able to submit such a revegetation plan to the town or to the trustees as well, if you wish.
I mean, honestly, I've met these guys on site multiple times, and the owners are just so, like, they really love the property and they really care about the environment out here. And they want to preserve a lot of if they can save the cedar trees on the bluff, the Costello agreed to work around some of the cedars that are there because they're on the edges. There's a native cherry tree. Otherwise, it's a lot of invasives at the moment. So they're gonna, most of the bluff face is gonna end up having the smaller vegetation, cleared during the work, and it'll be replanted with a nice native plant set. He has a guy, Jim, that works for him now who said he could do the re-veg plan. He also thought about contacting a little known place called Fort Pond Native Plants, if that's an option.
Listen, I can't say, Tyler, in this forum, that doesn't really move the needle. What I would, knowing this property, if it's still the same, the grade falls off towards the bulkhead on these properties, does it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know these are older bulkheads. These are older bulkheads that probably never required or ended the jurisdictional boundaries at the bulkhead. But, a 10-foot deep buffer isn't what I would describe as robust.
Yeah, I mean, that hillside, you're talking about clearing the slope. How much of the slope are you going to clear versus how much are you going to re-veg with the buffer?
Well, we're talking about a buffer that's already in place at the top of the bluff.
Yeah, there's no proposed buffer. It's just what's existing there. And that would all be, any of that got damaged would get revegetated, and the whole entire bluff face would get revegetated, of course.
Yeah, we're not proposing any additional clearing.
Yeah.
Well, I buffer more than what Tyler said. Hold on a second. Can we go back a frame?
Yeah.
Tyler, you mentioned that you were going to remove the lower, smaller vegetation on the slope.
Not
and then,
purposefully.
Replant the buffer. So maybe I got confused, but I was just curious about how much of a slope needs to be, adjusted or pruned or cleared.
Right.
And how are you handling the re-veg of that versus the actual buffer that you described as 10 feet wide?
There's gonna be no, unnecessary clearing. It's just gonna be the amount that ends up getting, cleared as the work is done to excavate the lower part of the bulkhead. So whatever Costello has to excavate, obviously that vegetation is going to be removed unless it can be preserved. I know John McGinn, the owner, has talked about trying to preserve whatever native vegetation that gets excavated in the process of the work. And Costello agreed that the things he could preserve would be the trees, like a cherry tree and some cedar trees. So beyond preserving that, it's mostly invasives that would end up getting excavated away when they do the work. But I know the idea from Costello's point of view and the owner's point of view is to remove as little vegetation as possible, and whatever does get removed in the process of this work would get completely revegetated with native species. And if the town wanted them to put, I don't know, we haven't talked to the town didn't require anything additional that they've asked about in our talks with the planning department or natural resources department. So that's where we are now. It's, revegetating whatever is necessary to make it as nice as possible and all native plants.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
I don't know if this will help or hurt, but
Okay.
my understanding is that, if you can see my arrow here, the excavator will be coming down to the level of the top of the bulkhead in this area where there's currently a walkway, and it'll be traveling along just behind the bulkhead in order to excavate out where the dead men currently are to remove them and replace them. So there'll be narrow trenches dug back to remove and replace the dead men. That's the area I think Tyler and Maddie are talking about that will be disturbed and refilled and replanted. There'll also be some disturbance by the tracks, obviously, as they move along the bulkhead.
John's going to need to create a level platform to work from. So what you can expect is basically at the very least the machine width back from the face of the bulkhead, which is normal. I don't know. It's I feel like I'd like to see the whole package so I knew what I was voting on. And if this is not something that is going to be started upon in the next 3 weeks, I think we could wait until our next meeting.
And we're happy to get a full application packet to each trustee.
Yeah,
so everyone can review the entire packet.
It's unfortunate in this sort of format that we're doing our meetings right now that deprives
Right. Normally you could share papers
from actually doing a more complete presentation to the board. But
Jim, I would suggest, given your reservations, that you visit the site.
Yeah, I actually know the property pretty well. This is the property just north of the Bud Levinson's primary residence, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'd like to go by.
I don't know if in any of the materials that I've seen that you'll get as good a feel for the slope, the elevation, where it flattens out as it approaches the bulkhead, that kind of thing, which seems to be one of your major concerns. So I still would suggest you visit the site to get a ground view of it.
We purposely met John and Ben there so that we could hopefully, field a lot of his questions preemptively before the meeting, so that hopefully everyone would have a good understanding of what was going on here, and that ideally that John and Ben's report could kind of satisfy the other trustees' questions. But I totally understand, Jim, if that's not.
Yeah, well, it's tough, Tyler. In the typical meeting sense, Ben and John would be able to actually share the documents. That would basically be able to look through. Yep. You guys would be presenting with the photographs and whatnot, and there'd be a sense of a sense of attachment to this. But it's really hard the way this is
Tyler
right now.
Tyler, have you been able to find those photographs for the board to see?
Yeah, sure. Here, I have them. Yep.
And Jim, I'll just mention that if the property is not locked, when you drive up to the gate, it will open as you drive close to it.
All right. Well, thanks. And I'm over that area a lot. I can stop by in the next couple of days.
And the owners are aware that people will be stopping by. The planning department was going to go back one more time to look, not regarding the bulkhead, but regarding the dock.
All right.
Yeah. I've been down on the site, and the bulkhead definitely needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
The dock is going to kick around a little bit, I think.
Well, I know the Levinson bulkhead was replaced, about 4 years ago?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really, I think, the inspiration. The owner here said, "Oh, that looks real nice over there. My dock's basically falling. My bulkhead's basically falling apart. That one looks great. Let's, we need to do this too before it's too late." And even since the process started, it's gotten a few holes in it. Trying to bring up the pictures, but there's some kind of privacy setting I have to get through here Oh, there we go. All right. What?
I think we made a visit to this site before John did, earlier.
Yeah, I went there with you, Bill, last year.
Oh,
And we looked it over fairly thoroughly. I have pictures someplace.
now
I
go
won't
to
be
share
able to
screen.
share 'em. But the
Now press.
bulkhead needs to be replaced.
Can you guys see that?
That bulkhead looks perfect. I love it. No, it's, I know the age of this bulkhead. It's time. It's been repaired once before.
Tired.
Looks like cubby holes for wild animals.
Yeah, really.
Exactly. We're providing homes for the wildlife.
Yeah.
Some otter dens or something. All right.
Okay, so Jim, are you proposing that we table this till the next meeting?
Listen, if somebody here wants to make a proposal to vote on this, I'm not comfortable voting on it tonight. That's all.
That's fine, but you had said 3 weeks, but we meet in 2 weeks.
If we meet in 2 weeks, then 2 weeks.
Okay.
I said when they plan to start. You know, this is something I think we'll be able to vote on. And who knows, maybe in that 2 weeks' time, you'll have something fleshed out better on the dock and
Right.
start to weigh in on both. All right?
Thank you very
That
much.
sounds fair. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Good night.
Have a great evening,
Good
guys.
night.
Good night. Nice to see you all.
You guys.
All right. Okay. Next, I have Eric Brown.
Hey, everybody. We're back. Rick Drew had asked us to come back on. Apparently, according to my wife, I've done to you guys what I do to her all the time, which is confuse everyone so no one knows what the hell is going on. So I guess I should hang up and leave now because my job is done. Rick, do you want me to sort of go over why I think we're here, or do you want to do that and then I'll weigh in?
Yeah, I can just give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I think it was a miscommunication at the last meeting, and it's left us with a little bit of a confused position, for lack of a better term, regarding the status of the cooperating agencies on 24 West End Road as to whether or not the applicant actually has approvals. So, Eric, if you just want to walk through the disconnect and
Sure,
see if we can't get this on track, and then the board can kind of talk about the best way forward here with regard to this application.
Okay, so if everybody recalls, this is for the Phragmites control on the West End property. That is what we came in front of you for the last time we were here. As part of that application, as we tried to do, we supplied you with information on projects in the surrounding area. In this case, there was a wetlands buffer, an upland wetlands buffer that was outside of trustee jurisdiction, which had been approved by the ZBA. And so Rick had some questions about that. I think he wanted to know about irrigation and fertilization, and we talked a little bit about that. The project that we were specifically in front of you for was the Phragmites control. And during that conversation, I think what happened was we had one project that had ZBA approval, another project that needed both ZBA and trustee approval, and neither Scott nor I distinguished between those two. And I think the board got the impression that on the Phragmites part, we were already through the ZBA process. That's not the case. We have our ZBA hearing on the 9th of October, which is a week from this Friday, I think. And Scott sent, we sent the notice out. Scott and I figured it out when Arlene sent one of her really helpful emails and basically gave us an idea of the timing for when the permitting paperwork would be issued. And Scott and I responded back and said, well, we're not in a huge rush because we don't have ZBA yet. And so I think, so that's kind of where we are. And so we sent you guys the notice. I think, Arlene, you received it. Is that correct? Okay.
I'm muted as well. I'm sorry. Yes, we received 2 notices of ZBA, very, very good notices. So
Okay, well.
That's what alerted Rick, actually.
Okay, so the hearing for the Phragmites before the ZBA is on for the 9th. So that's the clarification. And we didn't mean to, it certainly was not intentional to try and hide the ball. I'm not really sure how it would even help us to hide the ball, but nevertheless, it was just a miscommunication, and we just wanted to go on the record and, let you guys know that you had the notice, and to the extent you want to appear at the ZBA, that's great with us.
Eric, and what is the status of DEC, just so everyone's crystal clear?
Yeah, we have DEC, guys. The only thing we do, I have Scott here whispering in my ear, lest you think I've suddenly become smarter than the last time I appeared before you. We have, I believe, the only regulatory agency that has not reviewed it is the ZBA. Is that correct, Scott?
The village ZBA.
The village ZBA, yes, right. So we lack only village ZBA.
Okay, it's a little tricky, because the presence of the approvals is usually a trigger for the trustees moving forward. We do usually let the other agencies weigh in first. So that's something we do usually consider, because the other agencies bring different expertise, and it helps the trustees understand the whole picture of the project and, is it truly in the best interest of the pond and the public? So it is important that we follow that procedure, but I don't want this to be an onerous process right now, and I think it's important for maybe some other members of the board to, just weigh in here for a moment, please.
Just to be clear, we're not in a huge hurry on our side here. I mean, we came to you guys because your process resolved itself, or we got on the agenda before we got on the ZBA. So as far as we're concerned, we're not looking to run out there.
Right. Because, maybe we can just modify the resolution to condition it on approval, and we don't have to go through a rescinding process and reapproval process. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Hey, guys, 1 second. Does somebody have a TV on in the background? So I'm getting an echo.
I'm hearing an echo as well. Is my voice echoing?
No, you're good.
Okay.
How about us, Francis? We sound okay?
Yeah, it was just Rick that seemed to be echoing.
Okay.
I don't know. Am I still echoing?
No.
No, you're okay now, Rick.
Okay,
so,
thank
yeah, Rick, I had a chance to take a look at this as well. You and I have spoke over the course of this week a little bit. The one thing that I was kind of left with from reviewing this and putting into context was the basis for which the vote was taken. Now we're learning that was probably an inadvertent remark, but the basis was really we were left with, well, we have all the approvals and the trustee board is the last group left to do anything. And then we went to a vote there after that. So what Rick had asked me offline was, is there a procedure or a process for sort of amending the vote? And I think given this context, that if that's something that the board wanted to do, it seemed like that would be fine based on the way the vote was taken last time we left this.
I mean, it's fine with us, guys. It's in terms of the applicant. If you want to condition the effect of the permit to key off of the ZBA approval, that's fine too. I mean, we need to have ZBA, so it's not like we can do it without everybody. So whatever you guys want to do is fine with me.
Chris, if you think that conditioning on ZBA would be a path forward, it seems like the most streamlined, and I think we have tried to maintain a good flow here, and we have a long-standing relationship with InterScience and Eric and his firm. So, I think if we can just do a quick amendment, I'd like to make a resolution to amend it to be conditioned on ZBA and, allow the applicant to go for the permit and be able to move forward.
Yeah, Rick, I'm
Anyone
okay with
else have
that
any thoughts
process
on
as
it?
well. But yeah, I'd like to hear the other trustees sort of chime in. But from a process and procedure standpoint, I don't see that being a problem.
All we're permitting is the cutting of the Phragmites. Is that true?
And the planting.
And I think there's some restoration in that area as well.
There is.
restoration.
We'll have a little shoreline restoration going, John.
With plantings, guys.
You know, the reality is if one of the other agencies declines this project, it's not going to get done anyway. So does it really matter that much at this point?
So Rick, did you make a motion?
I did, just to condition the permit on ZBA approval.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recuse.
Okay, so anyone opposed? All right, so we'll condition it on ZBA approval.
Thanks, everybody. I'm very sorry that we had this confusion. It was not, believe me, it was not intentional. It's not.
No problem.
Okay.
It's
Thanks
okay.
for coming in, guys. We appreciate you taking the time to sort it
No
out.
problem. Absolutely. It's nice to see everybody. Hope everybody stays healthy.
Thank you.
Someday
Have a
we'll all
good
be in the
evening.
same room again someday, I guess. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, Matt, do we have anyone on the phone?
You do not, Francis.
Okay. So let's move on to new business. First thing we have is, okay, we on the agenda, we have that we're going to vote on two Orsted agreements, the joint proposal and the Georgia Sand agreement. I was a little confused on the sand agreement. Apparently that's going to be dealt with the lease when we discuss that. So what we're going to work on tonight is the joint proposal.
Well, Francis, I think it might be appropriate, being that it showed up on our agenda, to at least explain that to the public, because I'm sure there's some questions out there. I fielded one phone call about that today.
Okay, do you have a copy of it, Jim? Because I don't have one here.
I don't have it sitting in front of me, but I can describe it if anybody would like. I can describe the purpose of that agreement.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Okay. One of the things, as part of the Article 7 process, there was a lot of discussion about the step-by-step methodology of doing the directional boring of the cable then at the end of Beach Lane. What became very evident is the timeline for that work, when and if it occurs, and that it would more than likely disrupt our annual harvest of sand at Georgia Pond. When that was brought to the developer's attention, their first reaction was, well, don't worry, we'll make sure that you guys are able to do your work that season. I think when they understood the restraints on just the area that you're working in here, they recognized very quickly that probably was impractical. So they came back to our board and they have basically offered to reimburse the trustees for the amount that we would typically get for a season on the sale of the sand coming out of Georgia. So the way this would be measured is essentially we'd take the prior year's bid, and if we are interrupted for a season on the dredging of the sand, they basically would reimburse us for that lost revenue. And that's what that agreement is about. If anybody has any questions.
So that's one separate agreement, Jim, correct, for the sand reimbursement?
The separate agreement, because the anticipation is in all likelihood, we will have one season of dredging interrupted. Now, keep in mind, we are 2 years into a 10-year permit. We've gotten a total of 30,000 yards in sand out at the south end of Georgia. And then we had taken another, I think it was 900 yards of sand that we took out of the south bottleneck. So right now, if we happen to lose a year, I don't really think from an environmental standpoint, it would be the end of the world. I don't think we could go back to the DEC and ask for an improved take the following year, and I don't think we would have to.
What about the openings, the seasonal lettings, spring and fall?
No, the seasonal lettings will not be in any way impaired. That's it. That's a given. And that was something that we did have discussion about. Is there is no way that we can even have the scheduled dates challenged on that. And the developer was very receptive to that.
That's a much simpler operation. It's basically one vehicle through the construction site for a few hours and then back through again, done. So, anybody else?
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. I guess I'm going to read the resolution for the joint agreement.
So, I'm sorry, Francis, I'm confused. Are we voting on the sand?
No.
Rick, this is Dan. I asked, originally I asked Francis to put it on the agenda, but after talking with South Fork, we felt that really should wait because it's really tied in directly with the lease. There's no reason to do the dredged agreement unless you do the lease, and the dredged agreement form actually refers to the lease. So we left on the agenda to discuss it and answer any questions, and but we asked that it be held in terms of a vote, and that it's really more appropriate to vote at the time you vote on the lease.
Dan, we've already posted.
The sand is being tabled. The sand agreement's being tabled until the discussion on the lease.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Dan, are we going to have to post that again?
You haven't actually posted the agreement itself yet, I don't think, right?
No. No, I guess not. So
yeah. So at the time that the agreement is ready, you'll have some more dates filled in and stuff. So it would be appropriate at that time when when you're ready to vote on the host agreement and the lease, you should really post all those documents for the public to see.
We did post it on the website, the link that you sent us. So any member of the public or Rick can see it at any time.
So that link was to the joint proposal, not to the agreement. So we'll make sure, Miller or I, that you have the dredged agreement, before you're asked to vote on it.
That should be. It kind of goes in. So we'll put those two together.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll read the resolution. Resolution approving the joint proposal governing the application of Deepwater Wind South Fork LLC for a certificate of environmental compatibility and public need for the South Fork Wind Farm. Whereas on September 14th, 2018, Deepwater Wind South Fork LLC filed an application for a certificate of environmental compatibility and public need under Article 7 of the Public Service Law to construct, operate, and maintain the South Fork export cable, a 138 kilovolt electric cable that will connect the South Fork Wind Farm located offshore in federal waters to the existing mainland electric grid in the town of East Hampton on Long Island in Suffolk County, New York. And whereas the trustees have been actively involved in the application review since the commencement to promote conditions on any approval that address community concerns. And whereas on September 24th, 2019, a notice of settlement negotiations was filed with the Secretary to the Commission, and settlement negotiations regarding the South Fork export cable began on November 8th, 2019. And whereas the trustees and the freeholders in commonality of East Hampton, the trustees participated in nearly 10 months of weekly in-person and telephonic meetings and electronic correspondence among the parties to develop these measures that specifically address the public need for the project and the construction, operation, maintenance, repair, and decommissioning of these portions of the project that are proposed to be located within the jurisdiction of the trustees, and those provisions related to fisheries, other marine species, and commercial and recreational fishing. And whereas the Deepwater South Fork filed the joint proposal on September 17th, 2020 with the New York Public Service Commission, and whereas the application for a certificate under Article 7 of the PSL is exempt from review under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act pursuant to New York Environmental Conservation Law, Section 8-0111-5B. And whereas the trustees believe the joint proposal to this, whereas the trustees believe the joint proposal to be in the public interest, now therefore be it resolved by the trustees as follows. The trustees hereby authorize and approve the signing of the joint proposal as reflected on the attached exhibit, which is incorporated herein in support of only those provisions that address the public need for the project and the construction, operation, maintenance, repair, and decommissioning of these portions of the project that are proposed to be located within the jurisdiction of the trustees, and those provisions related to fisheries, other marine species, and commercial and recreational fishing. This resolution shall be effective immediately. Do I have a motion to take a vote?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to vote on it.
Anybody want to discuss this? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second it.
Anybody want to discuss?
Yeah.
So where is the town on this, Francis? Have they already voted?
My understanding is that they adopted a resolution of support for the project, and they were uncomfortable for some of the same reasons that we caveated the signature page with actually voting on it. They were concerned that there were investigations they didn't do, and not quite sure what all the reasoning was, but they did adopt a resolution in support of the project, and that's what they're submitting to the PSC.
Should I read the signature page, Dan?
I have a question.
Sure, that's a good idea, so you know what the caveats are.
Okay, in witness of the signatory parties hereto have this day signed and executed the joint proposal, signature space. The trustees and the freeholders in commonality of the town of East Hampton are signing the joint proposal in support of only those provisions that address the public need for the project, and the construction, operation, maintenance, repair, and decommissioning of these portions of the project that are proposed to be located within the jurisdiction of the trustees, and those provisions related to fisheries, other marine species, and commercial and recreational fishing.
Could I ask Dan to just in lay terms describe exactly what we are voting on so that the public understands it?
Yeah,
Sure.
There's a couple of key points that the town was concerned with. Maybe they could be shared as well.
The town, and Miller, you can jump in if you were actually at the hearings and maybe you know more of what the town was thinking. I mean, frankly, for the most part, the town's been following the trustees' lead on the conditions. The town has been focused a great deal on their easement and has spent a great deal of time with experts dealing with noise and other issues to make sure that their easement has the minimum impacts. But in terms of what happens in these proposals is the state creates a permit in effect, and the permit has conditions. And what the joint proposal is a list of those conditions. You may recall from a prior meeting, we discussed them at great length, and particularly some that were very important to us related to the depth of the cable, how long that cable would stay at 9 feet, some of those type of things are all part of these conditions. The conditions were derived in what by state law is a confidential process, the settlement process. And Mila was involved in all of the meetings, and I'm going to turn it over to her to discuss any specific items if she knows what the town particular issues were. But basically what you're voting on are proposed conditions to a permit. That does not mean that these will be the conditions to the permit. It's expected that at least the residents for Wainscott will seek other conditions, mostly an alternative route is what they've focused on. There are others who may seek other conditions. We don't know if the state agencies are seeking any conditions at this point. On October 9th, Mila, that the testimony's due.
That's right.
The only testimony that's been submitted so far has been related to the finances of the project. There's been no, because it's really premature, nobody submitted any testimony as to whether the conditions should be changed. So this is what the sort of consensus of the group, and by no means everybody joined that consensus on every condition, but this was the consensus of the group, and in particular the state agencies, the trustees in the town, were really the main ones that Deepwater was working with. The lot of conditions. So I'll turn it over to Miller for more specifics if you have questions.
Okay, but
Yeah,
just
I mean, has the state signed on?
So far, none of the state agencies have signed on, but they're not necessarily required to or anyway, nor is it necessarily
As I understand it, Dan, the state is waiting for the town and trustees to indicate their support. They don't want to support a settlement agreement that doesn't have an endorsement from the landowners. So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg problem, but I'm under the impression that they may sign or indicate some sort of support after we provide ours.
Okay. And just to go back again, Dan and Mila, for the public, we're not voting this evening on the lease. We're voting on the resolution to approve the joint proposal, which is what we've been working on for quite some time.
Right. It's a joint proposal for the conditions to the Article 7 permit.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, Dan. One thing we're voting on is the public need for the project as it's written in the resolution. In the joint proposal, Section 3 is environmental compatibility and public need. And then there's a subsection A, need for the project. And there's a few lettered points there. That's followed by subsection B, cost. When we say public need for the project, does that mean we're only considering subsection A, need for the project? No other subsections of the environmental compatibility and public need section?
Miller, do you want to address the sections that were specifically not, we're caveating it so that we can talk about what sections we are referring to? Because that's the whole point of the conditions, is to limit to what we are talking about. Miller,
Sure.
You want to address that?
Yeah, so the conditions that the trustees spent a lot of time on were those concerning the fisheries study and taking a greater look at the impact the project might have on commercial and recreational fishing, as well as marine habitat in the area. So we spent a lot of time developing certificate conditions that ensure that will be adequately studied, and that parties will come back together to review those study results and talk about any mitigation measures that should be necessary should there be an impact from the project on the surrounding community. We also spent a lot of time on the EMF reading from the cable. So understanding what the EMF levels will be once the cable is installed, and monitoring those throughout the life of the project. Similarly, the trustees invested a lot of time looking at the risk of cable exposure. So ensuring that the construction conditions are such that the cable is installed in a way that makes it unlikely for it to ever become exposed. Some of the language to point out is that the cable will be buried 30 feet below the beach, and at a depth greater than, I believe it's 9 feet in the nearshore area. which greatly reduces the risk that the cable will ever be exposed. But in addition to that, there are a number of measures for going out and reviewing the cable after a significant storm event, or anything that could possibly lead to shifting sand on the ocean floor, and exposure of the cable. And then, of course, in tandem with that, a requirement that the company pay for the reburying of the cable. So there'll be a performance security in place that would take care of the cost of reburying the cable if it were to become exposed. And then finally, also the decommissioning of the project. So at the end of the wind farm's life, ensuring that there's security posted in advance that covers that work, and then also giving the trustees some power to ensure that the project is removed correctly, or alternate some items left in place if the construction of removing them would be too disruptive. So those are sort of at a high level the areas that we were heavily involved in writing conditions for.
And to specifically, John, in terms of your question, are we splitting the baby between cost and need? The answer is yes. And we are specifically saying in this certificate, which is part of the approval of this, that we are addressing need. We are not addressing cost.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Anybody else have any
In voting
questions?
on this proposal, Dan, if I may just ask a follow-up question. In voting on this joint proposal, although the trustees spent a lot of time in certain areas, are we still voting on supporting the entire proposal?
You know, you're really not voting on anything other than the conditions you worked on, Rick. It's really, as I mentioned in my email, when you vote on the lease that you're supporting or not supporting the project, because that's when you're letting somebody in your land. But you've also got to decide as a group, what is it that you're voting on? There were a lot of issues that were very important to the group, most of which Miller just went through and which we spent a lot of time on. With the lease, we talked about what is the fair compensation to the community for the use of the beach and for allowing the project to go forward. So in a sense, you're voting on everything that fits into the words impacts and payment for those impacts, which theoretically could include costs. So, you know, it's up. Are you, could somebody say, well, you're voting for higher electric bills if you approve this? That's really an unfair statement, because you're not voting either now or in the lease on the cost. That's between LIPA and the wind farm, and the Public Service Commission is not actually involved. And this is in Article 7, which is a Public Service Commission process. So I don't know if I answered your question, Rick, but you're really voting tonight that the conditions reflect the mitigation to the maximum extent practical on the issues that we identified from the get-go, because that's all that's in front of you tonight is the conditions.
Hey, Dan.
Okay,
Chris,
Dan, thank you for that explanation.
So, hey, guys, it's Chris. I'm still a little unclear. I think John posed the question and Rick elaborated on a little bit, but I can agree with all the work we've done on all the conditions thus far. What I still don't fully understand is the idea of the public need for the project, and if the trustees have an opportunity to weigh in on, you know, the need for this project, is that something that we didn't really look at and we're now being asked to vote on as it's put into this resolution? It's what it seems like, and I'm just not fully understanding that part of the process.
Well, it depends on whether or not the trustees want to look at the need. Was there a need to replace the bulkhead? Would the world have gone on if you had not voted on that prior bulkhead? Was there a need for a new dock? When you look at the concept of need of a project, you're not offering up an opinion that New York State needs this particular wind farm, or this compliance with the state energy plan needs this wind farm. That's the Public Service Commission's job in terms of the CLPA. The word need within a Public Service Commission analysis is somewhat broad. Does it fit the need? This is a generating facility that is providing clean energy to the state, and you're indicating that you support the idea that that's a good thing, and really nothing else. You're really not getting into the details of whether this project is needed to meet the state's energy needs. The New York is not facing yet what California obviously went through in terms of power shortages. and there's no indication that that your lights are going to go off if this is not approved. This is not an indication that it's needed for the CLPA. The term need is, does it fit into the state's energy policy in terms of a generating facility? And if that's not really something you get into in terms of when you talk about need in this, it's more in terms of just the broader concept. If you're uncomfortable with the term need, we could certainly take that out of the language, but nobody, I mean, I realize that there are project opponents, so if you vote yes, the people will say that you're saying, you know, you're approving this horrible thing, whatever, blah, 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 whatever their concerns are. But you're not voting on whether or not this is a good idea for New York State or for Long Island. You're voting on whether or not the joint proposal has answered the questions, including need gets into, is this going to help, you know, or is it going to harm the fisheries, for example? So it's kind of a viscous term, and I realized that was a really long lawyer answer that went around in circles, but you're not acting as the Public Service Commission here.
Dan, could I ask you about when we discussed the fisheries, that the cable has been moved from the original position, has it not? They've agreed to, the developer has agreed to move the cable to an area that will not interfere with the fisheries?
You mean the cable, or you mean the actual turbine locations themselves?
I'm sorry, turbine location.
So there is an alternative in the BOEM, which is not part of this because it's outside the territorial limit, that includes what we asked for in terms of looking at alternative sites. One of the things that's kind of interesting about this is how many turbine sites are going to get built. They're asking for up to 15, but the industry has marched on since this was first submitted, and you now have Ørsted in other areas contracting for 14 megawatt turbines. Well, 14 megawatt turbines for this project would be 8 turbines, which would be 8 places. They didn't move the cable that I'm aware of, but they did move some of the proposed turbine locations, and they specifically did so, and this is on the BOEM webpage, they specifically did so at the request of some of the commercial fisheries and with NOAA's support. That doesn't mean by any means that the commercial fisheries have said this is wonderful, but they did change the location to specifically try to avoid within the leased area, the reduced leased area, areas that were primarily used by commercial fishery transiting from Cox's Ledge and all. So there was that change, and we're looking at less turbine sites. I would be shocked if they don't go with bigger turbines because they're cheaper. And if you eliminate, they're cheaper per megawatt, if you will. If you can do the same size project with 8 to 10 turbines as opposed to 15, why would you build 15 foundations? But they also did, and I think this may be what you're referring to, Susan, they also moved the location of those turbines to accommodate some of the requests from the commercial fisheries as to what traffic lanes, if you will, to keep open.
Thank you very much, Dan. That's what specifically I was asking. Yes, thank you.
Dan, just to follow up on that, they increased their megawattage once. Are they fixed at the megawattage that they're proposing now? Or could they ask for an increase so they can use the larger turbines and still go with 15?
So they have not asked for further increases, and they don't have a PPA with LIPA for more power. So unless, I mean, that doesn't mean they can't come back and ask for, but they'd have to go through the whole process again because the cable size is limited to a certain voltage. So they'd have to start over. The Article 7 covers these proceedings, but it also covers amendments to these proceedings if you want to change what you're doing. So they could change out the turbines without increasing the voltage 10 years from now without having to go back through Article 7, but they couldn't increase the size of the facility in terms of the voltage of the cables without going back through Article 7. Does that
Right,
answer your question, John?
Yeah, right. I forgot that the only reason they could increase the first time was because they could push that increased power through the same cable they had originally proposed.
Right.
So I get, yeah.
And they really would have a lot of work to do, because a bigger cable means redesigning the entire roadway and, everything on land. It means redesigning the juncture points. It means redesigning the offshore wind station. It would be a pretty big deal to change the main cable.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mila.
Okay, so do I have a motion? Okay.
I'll make a motion to.
We have a motion by
Bill.
Susan McGraw-Keeble.
Okay. So do we have a motion to vote on this?
Yes. There's a
And who made
motion
that
and a
motion?
second.
Motion and a second. Okay, so let's do a roll call vote. Arlene?
Taylor and Susan. Sure. Yep.
Yes.
It's Francis Bach,
Yes.
Jim Grimes.
Yes.
Hi, Bill. Thank you. Okay, Jim Grimes.
Hey, Arlene, I think
I'll wait for
there's some
Jim.
kind of background noise. Does anyone have a TV on or anything? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, I think if everybody would
Can you
mute
hear me?
their voice when they're not singing, there does appear to be sort of a TV on or something, a box within a box that is kind of causing some of the issues. So maybe it says Jason Nauer. If you can maybe mute yours. Perfect. Thank you, Jason. I think that's where I was coming from, but I could be totally wrong given my technical skills.
Okay, Jim Grimes for the vote.
Yes.
Oh, you're not mute. You're mute. Thank
I
you,
said
Jim.
yes before I muted.
Okay, John Aldred.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing well over here. My connection is shaky. Sorry, Jim. Ben Hollinger?
Yeah.
Okay. Rick Drew. If I'm not hearing, someone else can tell me. I didn't hear what Rick said.
Oh, now I got you, Arlene. I didn't hear you before. I mean, I'm a little concerned that the town hasn't weighed in on this, and they've, given another kind of soft vote of support. And I'm really, really conflicted that we're going to be taking the lead here on this super important project, where we have the state and the town kind of hanging back. And honestly, it's just been difficult to get information moving along. So I just don't want to see our board kind of hanging out here, as the lone ship on the ocean here on this project. So, I'm honestly, I'm really conflicted.
Rick, we can get to the resolution, but the town board voted in favor of the project. It was pretty broad. They didn't say maybe, should have, or whatever. They said they're going to vote later on the agreements. And I don't know if they're voting on the joint proposal, but my understanding of what I saw, and Miller will correct me, or Francis, someone who was there, they voted yes on the project. They weren't just dealing with the conditions. So, while sometimes, you need to go first, otherwise everybody sits and waits. It can be like the two samurai on the beach who stand there for days staring at each other, not to give the other guy an advantage by going first. But the town has gone first, if that's the issue. But if you're going to wait for everybody to go first, then we'll never get this done. So it's your call.
Right. Okay. No, I'm in. I am in. And I just hope we can, get some good cooperation going here with the other agencies. Thank you for clarifying, Dan.
Okay. Tim Garneau,
Yes.
Mike Martinson, I don't think he joined us. And Susan McGraw-Keeper.
Yes.
Who said he did it? Okay, thank you, Susan.
Did you call
Okay.
Ben?
Ben? Muted.
I'll call him again if I did. I think Ben answered, but Ben Dollinger, can you confirm what your vote is?
I answered yes. You can hear me, Arlene?
Thank you.
Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
my connection might be getting a little bad too, so thank you. Nope, I got to check next to everyone voted on that. It is unanimous about the conditions, whatever Dan said you're voting on there.
Another step
All right.
forward. Does anybody have any other questions about anything related to the process?
Dan, thanks.
Where do we go from here?
We have submitted, as you know, we've received a host community agreement, and we have asked the town to enter into a. As you know, received the host community agreement, and Arlene, can you mute yourself for a second? There's a host community agreement that is proposed. The trustees have told the town that we will consider it after the agreement for how the money is split is agreed upon.
Yes, I
We have presented a joint proposal to town, and the ball's in their court to tell you to come up with a response. I don't know, Francis or Jim, if you've heard anything. I've not heard anything since Miller submitted that to the town.
No, nobody's spoken to me yet.
Oh, nothing.
In terms of the Public Service Commission process, October 9th is the date on which testimony is due. We expect testimony from Wainscott to basically oppose the Beach Lane alternative. Although we're not sure they haven't actually presented any evidence as to any alternative that's frankly environmentally different, which is really what the state looks at. So we'll see what comes. We don't know at this point. The state officials were on the phone with the ALJ the other day when the schedule was set. They were asked point blank by the judge, are you submitting testimony? And they said, we don't know yet. So once testimony is submitted, the judge decides whether or not a hearing is required on that testimony after rebuttal testimony is submitted. Usually there is a hearing if there's an issue of fact raised. I would suspect that on a number of things, there will be motions to strike the issues that are raised. If those are not successful, then you have an evidentiary hearing starting December 2nd. One of the reasons for trying to push the town to sign the sharing agreement is so that you can consider the host agreement, because in terms of that litigation, the South Fork has agreed to cover your costs, and it would be nice if the town would make sure that that happens.
I have a quick question. I'm assuming, since you talked about it a lot tonight, that the confidentiality order we were under in the settlement hearing.
Excuse me, you're broadcasting live on TV to the public. Do you know that? I didn't know.
Yeah, we do. Everything I said is nothing I said is confidential, and you are no longer under the confidentiality. There's nothing that I said that is private. It's actually been in the newspaper, the host agreement. The host agreement itself has been shared. The host agreement specifically references the sharing agreement that we were referring to. So if there's anybody from the town who can get on board, that would be great. But we continue to, I'm not aware of anything that we've said that presses the boundaries of confidentiality. And in answer to John's question, the settlement is over, so now all those documents are public documents.
Okay. All right.
And I have a question for you, Dan. When is the evidentiary hearing scheduled for? Is it December 2nd?
December 2nd.
Okay. Thank you.
It's normally they're held in Albany. His Honor made it clear, though, the other day they're going to be Zoom hearings. unless something changes pretty drastically between now and then. They're going to be a Zoom hearing, so people will be able to listen in.
And we've also been participating in the BOEM process. There's something coming up there, isn't there? Soon.
Mila, are you on still? You're on.
Yeah, sorry. There's a meeting tomorrow from 10 to 2 to start diving into the Section 106 review, which is the preservation of artifacts review section that doesn't have a lot to do with an offshore wind farm, but is a necessary part of the BOEM review. I'll be attending that meeting and circulating a write-up on it.
Okay. So do we have anything else to discuss on this? Wrap it up?
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Dan and Miller. We appreciate you being here to help.
Yeah,
Good thing. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night. All right. And my understanding is we have, hold on one second. I'm sorry. Richard Audette Jr. He's a pump out boat builder. Here to answer any questions we might have for the new boat we want to order.
Hey guys, if I may, thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me? I haven't said anything, so I don't know if I'm coming through clear. Am I coming through clear?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome. Sounds like you guys are working hard, which is good to see. I deal with a lot of towns and municipalities and government agencies, so it's I've sat in on these before, and it's great what you guys do. Take so much pride in your towns, so good for you guys. Kudos. But I am here today to hopefully answer any questions that you guys may have regarding a new pump out boat for the 2020 season. I spoke to Jim on the phone a couple times, and I've gone back and forth with Arlene as far as specifications and some pictures and some general questions. As far as I know, you guys have one of our vessels already. It's used quite a bit, and you're looking to get a new one and then possibly update the one that you currently have with a refurbish / rebuild on that to run 2 vessels. So that's my understanding of the project. And if you guys have any questions for me, please ask, and hopefully I can answer them.
Anybody?
Hey, Rich and we spoke quite a bit, and Rich, you actually answered pretty much all of the questions I had about this. Maybe just to keep some of the members of the board that might be unsure, we're discussing the 23-foot boat.
Yeah, it seems like a good size for our water bodies and turnaround times to disposal areas.
Yeah, and one of the things I talked about Jim about is, captains are really important in these things, and I've learned that, in this business, and their feedback is really essential. So if the captain that you have now is running the boat and he says, "Hey, listen, 430 gallons is really a good number for us, and that's the 23 that you guys are looking at now," I would definitely lean on that, because they know, and they're the ones running the boat. So if he says, "Hey, we may need to step it up," then that may be something you want to look at. But if he's comfortable with the 23 and he's doing a good job at it, I certainly think that sticking with that vessel is probably within your best interest.
The 23 is what we need. I think we're going to wind up running 2 23-footers in that one harbor. So we'll be covered.
Hey, Rich, you know what probably would be, if nobody has a lot of questions about the new boat, maybe you could walk this board through what comes up, what the scope of a refit is typically for you guys.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So refurbing or overhauling an old boat is is pretty easy if it's one of our vessels that we built, which you guys currently have. So basically what happens is I try to gather as much information as we possibly can on a vessel before we get it in-house. And I can come up with a general quote on things that we typically would need to replace, such as gel coat the floor, new fenders, pull off the old fender system, replace it with a new fender system, pull out the old pump and the old hoses, have them refurbished. We're close to Edson in Massachusetts, which we use the pumps for. And Jim, you guys just bought an Edson pump. So I actually physically take that pump, I bring it to Edson, and I have them rehaul the whole pump. So they do the new spares kit, they do the flapper valve, we replace all the new hoses. We'll look at things like fuel lines to see if the fuel lines are old and they need to be replaced. But stuff like that is very variable because it's hard for me to give a price on fuel lines if I don't know that that needs to be done. Much like fuel tanks. If the tank, if we don't replace the tank and then you guys all of a sudden get the boat and a year later the tank, that you have a fuel tank issue, you say, hey Rick, why didn't you guys replace the fuel tank? I say, well, we didn't know to because there was no issue. So there are some variables with doing a refurb, but for most part, I would say they're pretty successful. I typically would come in on a high end of things with a quote so that if we did see something, it would be covered underneath that. We take a look at the general wiring of the vessel to see if anybody messed with any of the wiring, we fix that. If it's an engine issue, that obviously adds a lot to the refurb. I mean, engine prices are pretty expensive. So by the time you're done buying one and you're done rigging it and buying all the cables and everything, that adds to it. So the process which I think I'm in is I am waiting to speak to the captain of who's been running the vessel. He was going to relay to me kind of the ins and outs of what works, what doesn't, what he feels needs to be replaced, and what he feels comfortable that is in good condition. From those facts, I was going to take those numbers and then relay them back to you guys with a quote as detailed as possible of how we would go to refurbish that vessel. I hope that answers some of the questions.
No, hey, thanks, Rich.
So this. So when do we have to order? Should we consider ordering the boat now?
Timeframes are kind of a tricky question. How we start doing this, how we've been doing this the last few years, we've grown quite a bit as a company since 2008 when you guys bought our boat then, which is a really good thing. But our 23s are in pretty high demand. We deal with a lot of town. We're the only, let me go back and tell you this, we're the only pump out boat manufacturer on GSA. So we're now basically a direct vendor to the federal government through the General Services Administration. So there are lead times that build up for these boats. I will tell you that I can typically produce a 23 footer within 65 days as a maximum number. But you guys felt are going to be well within that time frame, being that you're probably not going to want the vessel till the springtime anyway. There are orders in-house, so that mold is being used. I will tell you this. So what happens is once I get a purchase order from a town or municipality like yourselves, I assign a hull number, and then we give an approximate delivery date and time. If you were to order one right now, for instance, we would be 4 in on our 23s, so you would have it would put you at about a end of February delivery date if we were to get a purchase order right now on a 23 from the town of East Hampton. So the longer that you guys wait, the more that gets pushed back. So you do have time, considering you probably kick off your program around May 1, but those spots do get filled. So I hope that answers the question to the best of my knowledge. Basically, it's first, as we receive orders, we have to provide hull numbers, and that's when we put boats in place to be made.
What's the time on the rebuild? I think
we'll get it to you back by the beginning of the season. You know, our new manufacturer, our new lines come first, and our rebuilds usually happen during the winter. So it's a good time for us to get that in house and take a look at it, because it gives our guys time to pull them off of current projects and put them on refurb projects.
Are you having particular? Is there a particular engine you think works best on this type of boat?
I find engines to be a reflection of our vessels. So I usually leave the end user a chance, the choice of picking the engine. When the engine doesn't work, people unfortunately don't say, "Oh, that engine doesn't work." They say, "Oh, that boat doesn't work." So I want you guys to pick the engine. I spec out a Suzuki 200 horsepower on the vessel that you guys are looking at. That's our standard engine. It's reliable, it's cost effective, and I don't have problems with them. We've been with Suzuki for years. We have recently this year picked up Yamaha, which I know Jim said was a big bonus for you guys. You like Yamahas, which is great. They're a premium engine. They're more expensive.
Do you deal with government pricing on engines?
I do. Yeah, OEM pricing and government pricing, correct.
This may not be a relevant question, I'm not sure, but is there a warranty on a refurbed boat? And how long is that for?
It's a good question. No, there is not a warranty on any used or refurbished vessels that we do. There is on the new vessel, and we were at 5 years. We have gone up to 6 years on our new boats, so you will get that extra year. You know, if you guys choose to go with a new vessel this year, but refurb boats, no, I can't, we don't warranty them at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Rich, thanks for coming. I'm hoping we can get back to you sooner than later.
Yeah, let me know. Like I said, there may, and I won't hold you guys up too much longer, but when the captain takes a look at the specifications that I sent over, we do a lot of custom work, and you know, if he comes back and he says, "Hey, you know, I like the option of the tow bar or the craft bar combination, possibly some canvas work to get me out of the cold during the October months, or whatever it may be." We have a wide range of options that we can do for this vessel. So, you know, if he has some things that he likes or some suggestions that he wants to make over the years of running it, says, you know, I like this, but I don't like that, we can figure it out. And, you know, we can get him running the vessel that he wants, that works best and is most efficient for him. So when I have that conversation, like I said, I'll get some of those details and I'll be able to add them to the quote. And some of them don't even cost money. Some of them are just, hey, you know, I like this valve in this spot as opposed to where it was originally. And that's just moving things around. And we can accommodate stuff like that at no charge.
Okay, I guess you guys know we're having some engine problems with that boat in Montauk at the moment. So the refurb is something we're going to have to talk about sooner than later. So keep that in the back of your heads.
Well,
hey, Francis, you know,
yeah.
we could look at refurbing the vessel and, you know, making the engine decision perhaps, you know, slightly later in the process, not much later, but we would have a little more time on that one. So, you know, these seem like two really important projects, and with some of the supply chain issues being in the marina industry myself that we've experienced, I would strongly encourage us to try to deliberate fully on these two decisions, the new boat and the refurb, as soon as possible, because we could hit some speed bumps that are out of everyone's control.
I agree.
Yeah, and we have had some speed bumps this summer with the COVID and supplies and getting things, and some projects have been put back. So it's, you know, to your point, it would be helpful the sooner you guys move, the sooner we can get you on the build plan. But I just want to touch on one thing back to what Susan said. If you were to go with a new engine on your old boat, there would be a warranty for that engine. I don't want you to think there wouldn't be. That's a new engine that comes with a manufacturer's warranty on that engine. So that would be standard. If we were to do things like replace compasses and replace depth sounders, those would have manufacturer warranties on them as well. What we wouldn't do is I wouldn't be able to warranty, like I said, fuel tanks that we didn't replace and holding tanks that we didn't replace, stuff like that. But anything that we did replace, there would be a warranty for that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Hi, if I'm allowed to jump in, this isn't for you, Rick, if we're thanking you. But if we're applying for the grant from the town and we may have a deadline possibly before our next meeting, October 16th, the towns, all the governments who deal with, they always like to see resolutions. So we've obtained our grant for $60,000, but we've never passed a resolution to purchase the boat and to apply to the town for the funding. So I don't know if Chris Carrillo can help us with that, or at least something that confirm the vote we took to buy a new boat in just using the word resolution instead of vote. I don't want that to hold up our grant from the town as they meet in October.
I think we have to know what we're purchasing before we can pass a resolution. So I think we have a little more work to do.
Right, and we have a proposal for a certain, a new vessel. Are you referring to we don't have a proposal for the refurbishment yet?
Okay.
No, yeah, I mean, I think Arlene's a little garbled at times.
This would just be in general terms.
But accepting the proposal, accepting.
We already have put in an application.
Yeah. But all of these grants.
I'll bow out of this. I'm not saying accepting the application, just the general idea. Okay, why don't I just bow out? My connection is bad also. I'm sure we can work on it for the next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Arlene. Thanks.
Okay.
I mean,
all right,
we know what we're looking for with the new boat. We have all the specs, don't we? I mean, we could make a decision on a new boat, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could too, and all of the grants are reimbursement grants, so we have to put the money up, ourselves first.
If you guys, just food for thought on the refurb, right? I haven't got into it with the captain of what it needs and what it doesn't need, but I'm not, and don't hold me to this, but I mean, you're going to be looking from somewhere. Your low number is going to be around 10,000 on the refurb, and your high number is probably going to be around 2022. And that 2022 number, would be dependent on whether you would go with, a new engine or whatnot, or on the vessel. So, again, it's getting it back, getting it in-house and going through it and creating a list of what we need to do is half the battle. But I know it's a broad range, but that's where I've seen these projects go. From the 10 number to the 20 number, and then you have an engine, whether you want to replace it or not. That's up to you guys. Engines, typically a 200 horsepower engine is going to run you either between $16,000 to $17,000 if you want to go with a Suzuki engine, or if you want to go with a Yamaha, wireless electronic engine, it could be $23,000. So decisions like that have to be made from you guys as a board. And, you know, I can provide numbers. I just need the information to provide so I can give you guys accurate information.
Rick, that's all reasonable. And, you know, I've basically refurbished plenty of pieces of equipment, and there's always that range in pricing, and there's always those unforeseen that once you get into it, nobody's got x-ray vision. You're finding things that nobody anticipated, but it's time, and it's the best time to do it is when you've got the place, when you've got a boat, let's say in your yard, and you can address all of this stuff. So the way I kind of see this is being, we would probably come up with a laundry list of issues. And then once you have the boat in your yard, we probably would take a field trip up there and walk through it with you. And we'd look at it together and we decide what's triage this thing in-house, what we feel is important, what we don't feel is important, and we move on.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan. We'd love to have you guys up. We have a 60,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility. So you could even come up, and if you guys elect to go with a new vessel this year, you can come up and see it from the ground floor, from the boat when it goes in the mold and when it comes out, and the whole nine. So definitely encourage you guys to come up and take a look.
All right.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you for coming in, Richard.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
And I think Arlene, I know Jim has my information. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, text, call, whatever. And hopefully I can answer to the best of my knowledge. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll be hearing from us soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Next thing I have under new business. I think Jim would like to start a discussion on meeting at town hall.
Well, I just, you know, it's been asked of me, and I think what was demonstrated tonight is the shortcomings of Zoom and the public's inability to actually deal with us in person in real time. I don't know whether we're getting closer to a point where we can comfortably meet in public, but I did want to start talking about it.
You know, I mean, there could be an interim process where just the board meets and can use the big screen and have a little more of a cohesive workspace, even if we, you know, use the main sitting area as the work area, and created, you know, somewhat of a safely distanced engagement center using the town hall space and getting it on LTV and using the technology and, you know, being able to interact a little more with official documents and things like that. So that's something that, you know, I think could possibly work.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too, but I think the key is LTV. What can they do? What can't they do with covering everything?
Well, how about we set up a discussion with them, or, you know, have a committee level discussion with them and then come back to the board?
Sounds like a great idea. I don't think this is something that we're certainly able to decide tonight. I don't think it's something that we're probably going to be able to do for our first meetings in October. But the sooner we can get that sort of in our heads, I think it's important to weigh the options and see how we can do this safely.
And I would participate in that committee if someone else wants to partner with me, or two other people want to partner with me to reach out to LTV, come up with a workspace concept, and bring it back to the board.
Well, I'm in.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to include the town with that also.
Have a second meeting with them, Francis?
Yeah, because we just got a memo today about public coming into the buildings, and apparently we're now allowed to have a single person by appointment. So they are inching towards that, but they're certainly nowhere near it yet. And it is their building, so I think they need to be a part of the any conversation we're going to have on that.
Sure.
Understood. Thank you.
All right.
Is anyone else here want to join? Jim, are you in on that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Jim, Rick, anyone else?
See you at the next meeting.
Okay. Let's see. Now, next thing we have, we need to start discussing scallop season. I know that apparently the DEC will be opening their season the first Monday in November. We're going to need time to post it to the public. And I think we, in the past, have started on a Sunday. So we don't have to do this tonight. I think if we do it the next meeting, we'll be fine. We have plenty of time.
We always wait like 2
I
weeks.
just wanted to bring it up. A week after.
We usually wait 2 weeks or somewhere around there. The Sunday would be like 13 days after the state opens.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about 1 week, Bill? Just because the water's a little warmer.
Yeah.
Well, 6 days, right?
The reason we delayed was to give our locals a chance to work the state waters. So,
Right.
You know, it depends on how heavy the crop is. I mean, if it's not, we could be fine. If it's heavy, they'd want to stay out there a little longer.
Right. Well, let's take that into consideration. That's a good point.
Does anybody know how the population looks this season? I heard there were a lot of bugs out there, but I haven't heard anything about anything larger.
Yeah, John, it's a good point, because when I was walking the beach in Northwest Harbor after the recent nor'east blow for 8-10 days we had, there were a lot of little bugs on the beach. I was raking them back into the bay. And that's the first year in quite a while I've seen scallops washed up on the beach, but they were small. They weren't much bigger than a quarter.
Right. Lori alerted us to the same phenomenon up on Maidstone after a north wind.
Yeah, I think that was the backside of the same storm, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's good to see there's some activity around.
John, would you be able to do a little investigating on how they maybe are predicting the state waters to be?
Yeah, sure.
And then we can do this next meeting?
Sure.
Great, thank you. All right, move on. Lazy Point, Napeague. Claire Scott, owner of 245 Lazy Point.
Right, we had Jennifer come in.
We did that, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's done.
Okay. Fresh pond dredging bids?
I made a call to Drew Bennett. We have our permits, as you all know, but I'd like to we really need to get a bid package together on that. And I wanted to run a few things by Drew, so I'm expecting I probably will hear from him shortly.
Okay.
And
what do you think the time frame is on that? Because I was down there the other day, and the drain is closed off. I mean, it may open up again if there's a rain or if the tide washed, storm washed.
Yeah. Well, hey, John, I'd like to do it soon. And the dredging stuff has been handled by the Harbor Management Committee. So maybe we could mark out some time next week, John and Rick, and maybe we could get together and put this together.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I'll be in touch.
I'm free, most evenings.
All right.
Or maybe some Saturday time.
All right. We old business. Ditch Plains personal injury lawsuit. Chris?
Yeah, I'll take over on this one, Francis. Thanks. So I think we discussed this maybe a couple meetings ago. This was a lawsuit stemming from a 2016 injury from a surfing or boogie boarding accident out at Ditch Plains. And for whatever reason, we were impleaded as a third-party defendant in a 2019 action. So I had a good conversation with Brian Matthews of Matthews, Kirsten Cooley on this one. He's had an opportunity to review the materials and items that have been filed to this point. And he seems to think that this, as do I and all of us likely, that this case is ripe for a motion to dismiss on several different grounds: failure to state a claim, statute of limitations, and others. So after a good talk with him, I'm going to recommend to this board that we bring on Brian Matthews. It should be a pretty straightforward one. I think a retainer agreement of around $1,500 should do it. And I just want to provide even a little more background just as far as my involvement. I spoke with Brian about kind of being a second chair on this one and co-counseling him on this. I think it's a good opportunity for me, primarily being a transaction attorney, to get some litigation experience, with the goal of hopefully down the road being able to handle these sort of lower end litigation on my own. So I think we're going to go ahead and do this together, but we're going to require a vote by the board here if you guys want to proceed bringing Brian on for a $1,500 retainer to handle this.
Do you have anything from him, Chris, that spells that out?
No, I do not. This was a verbal conversation today, but we can get him to send something over if you like before you.
All right.
Take a
Well, you know what we could do is we could vote on that tonight and get this going. I think the sooner we try and put this out, the better.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to do that, Jim.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote. Arlene?
Why don't you do it?
Arlene?
Yes.
I don't have the list.
Hear me okay.
You know what, Arlene, hold on one second. I think we can just do all in favor.
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay.
Excellent.
I think.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Arlene. Sorry about that. 2020 largest clam contest.
Yay. Ben?
Yay. I think it went really well. It went as good as it could. You know, we didn't have a ton of time to plan it. We put it together. We had a lot of participation. We got a lot of really great prizes and donations from local businesses. I want to thank our judges, John and Jim, for doing such a superb job of weighing and measuring the clams. I think, what do we have, about 20 participants, Susan?
I have the whole list here, so I thought I would read off the winners and the size of their, to make it official for everybody who participated. So, and then I have a list of the contributors of the gifts and so forth. I thought I would give credit to those companies, people, and organizations, if you would like.
Oh, great.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with the adults. And we have from Lake Montauk, Victoria London. Her clam was 12.7 ounces. Then we have in Hog Creek, Chad Callahan, and his was 10.6 ounces. Dennis Curls in Accabonac, another adult, 1 pound, 2.5 ounces. And from 3 Mile Harbor, we have Frank Ganley. His clam was a 1 pound, 7.8 ounces. And our grand prize winner, I'm going to say for the end, we'll go to the juniors next. The Hog Creek winner, who was a junior, was Miles Callahan. So his dad won in Hog Creek as well. And Miles's clam was 13.3 ounces. And then we go to Accabonac Harbor with Evie Rattray. Hers was 13 ounces. And on 3 Mile Harbor, Teddy Rattray Jr., 12.4 ounces. Our grand prize winner this year was Michael Fromm, whose whopping clam was a 2 pound, 1.6 ounce, I want to say fella, clam, and he found his in Napeague. So we managed to get everybody's videotapes in as we had asked them to do, naming where they found their clam, what their name was, and I have a collection of all those videos, and I will be taking those down to LTV for them to edit. And we'll put together a program with some great shots of stills of the judges, not judges, but those who are weighing them. Thank you so much, Jim and John, for doing that. It was really a wonderful and very interesting process to see you do it together. And I thank you for spending that afternoon with us. Ben, you've been phenomenal. Everybody who was out there getting gifts and prizes for our clam baskets. We had gift cards from Amagansett Seafood. By the way, the places that you were able to pick up the instructions and your clam bag was from Amagansett Seafood, Stewart's in Amagansett, the Seafood Shop in Wainscott, and also Gossman's. Those were the 4 locations that we had. So we had Amagansett Seafood give us 4 cooked lobsters as a prize. We had Blue Parrot with a $100 gift certificate, Fairway Restaurant, breakfast or lunch gift certificates, Fiero's Pizza. We had 4 pizzas, gift certificates, John Papa's Cafe with a $50 gift certificate, Montauk Pearls, that's Mike Martinson. He happily donated 50 whole lobsters or 25 half shell, prepared and ready to go. So thanks, Mike. Poxabog Golf Center, 9-hole round for a foursome group. Serafina with a $100 gift certificate for a meal. Shellfish Hatchery, that is Barley and the town of East Hampton, a 1-year membership, and that will begin in sometime in January. That is worth $250, and oysters. So Barley will be there to teach us, teach that winter all about bivalves and so forth, and it will be an educational as well as a fun thing to do. The corner store, we have 4 gift certificates at $50 a piece. And the seafood shop, we have a gift certificate donated by the Friends of Georgica Pond. Thank you so very much. It's $150. Harvest Restaurant in Montauk, $50 gift certificate. And we also have other prizes, bottles of Chardonnay white wine, 4 of them. We have 4 boogie boards, children's fishing rods. We also have things from Stevenson's Toy Shop in town, Captain Kidd in Montauk, toy bags, 4 of those. We had Kadima paddles from Conn's Sports Shop, and we had a fishing net from Conn's, and fishing nets from Harvey Bennett, Captain Harvey Bennett, right there in Amagansett. So we want to thank everybody who donated and who made this event as best we could during a year of pandemic. So I thank you all very much, and thanks to Ben for being our chairperson this year. And I last week told you that he had a very nice write-up in hamptons.com. So that's it. Until next year.
Thanks, Susan. And I'd just like to add, thank all the local businesses. We all volunteered to purchase a lot of these gifts, and they were more than happy to donate them, which just makes it feel really nice to be part of a small community that steps up. And also one of the children that won his category, his dad called me that night and just said it made his day to get his plaque and his basket. And he couldn't have been happier. And he was just so psyched to get outside and clam, and he can't wait to participate next year. So
good.
That made me feel really good. So, all right. Thanks.
Congratulations to everybody.
Hey, good job, guys.
Thanks, Francis.
Yep. Thank you, Francis.
All right, move on to I guess committee reports. We already talked about the pump out vote. Georgia Pond dredging bid.
Well, actually, Francis, we have the Fresh Pond, we have Georgia Pond, and we also have the request from the Clearwater Beach Property Owners Association, which I think the Harbor Management Committee meeting next week, we can probably bang out a lot of this.
Great. All right. 24 West End Road, clarification on village permit. I think we just did that with Eric, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Request from the Clearwater Beach Property Owners Association to renew their 2019 dredging permit as written for their annual 2020 dredging of Hog Creek Inlet. How'd that go last time?
We have had a discussion with Jim Carfaro from the Clearwater Beach Association. He is their chairman, and we've really made a lot of progress over the past couple of years, evolving the permit and the relationship, and with the Lionhead community. And I think Jim just wants to get together on a committee level one more time, and I'd like to get this going so they can plan accordingly. When they do dredge, it typically is done around mid-December, and it's a tight window, and we want to give them as much flexibility as possible, given they need to dredge. Before the last northeast blow we had, which was a little bit prolonged, there wasn't a lot of shoaling in the inlet, but, one or two storms can make a big difference there. So we need to reach out one more time, I think, to the board leadership. And Jim, did you say you wanted us to get together one more time?
Rick, I thought it would be timely to basically meet on all three of these. We've got the template of the last couple of years on Georgia. That should go pretty quickly. Same situation with Clearwater. We may want to tweak things just a little bit based on your conversations with their board. And my hope is to have at our next meeting vote on all of these and basically have them ready to go out.
All right, let's make that a priority so we can help everyone along as they need to.
Okay. Roads. Request from the owner of 163 Atlantic Avenue to have access over the Trustee Road, which leads to 169 Atlantic Avenue.
Can I take this one? I'm not even on road.
Yeah, Jim, I know you're familiar with the property. I've got a couple things to add, but go ahead. I think we're pretty much on the same page with this.
Yeah, I did speak for the attorney for the applicant today, and as some of you may recall, this actually came to us last year, and at the time that it came to us, it was a case where they were looking to replace a house at 163, but it in truth is a case where they're combining properties. And I asked the applicant, please send over the entire package. It'll give the people on the roads committee a better chance to digest what exactly is going on here. And I think it'll give our board a little truer representation. And I think John Tarbett, the attorney, would be prepared to come in at our next meeting and present on this. And I think it'd be far more productive than having a discussion blind about this tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Let's table it and we'll, revisit this at the next meeting with more information. It's definitely a much different project than we originally discussed.
Okay.
Arlene, did that schematic of the new project go out to all the trustees or just the roads committee?
I didn't get it.
I think it's something that, given the way we meet right now, it'd be something that'd be beneficial for all the members to get. So everybody's.
Yeah, I think an email distribution is appropriate, please.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a look at it as well. Jim, real quick, Jim, what are they asking for? An easement?
Well, no, you know what they're asking? They're asking to take access on the driveway off of the Trustee Road, which when it was the singular house that we were discussing, I could kind of get it. Now that they're combining two properties, I think it's important for our board to understand sort of the need here. And I can't discern that without seeing the whole package in front of me.
Yeah, I'd like to look at it as well. I think, the term take access doesn't really have a legal definition. So I don't know if it's a right to use or an easement or a prescriptive easement. There's a couple different things we're gonna need to look at there. So
anyway,
happy to review as well.
I thought if all of us got an opportunity to look this over and then the attorney and perhaps the architect for the applicant came in on our next meeting, we could certainly probably discuss this more intelligently.
Chris, I think it's more of a right to use. They want to just move the driveway over off of the Trustee Road. Is that right?
Okay.
But they want to take access off of Trustee Road.
Isn't that an easement?
No, it's not.
It's
Let's,
not.
no. An easement is an easement. Take access.
Access becomes ownership then? Is that?
Well, the concern is that it could in the future become some sort of ownership, easement or otherwise, but.
If it's
Yeah,
a
I mean-
trustee road, can anybody go over it?
Well, yes.
Yeah, we don't
but
give up public access with an easement.
We'll have to see it to fully review.
Is it similar to Northwest Trails throughout the area of Bullpath and Two Holes of Water Road, where those trails go through properties and people try to board them off so the public cannot walk on them?
No, I don't.
Those trails are public.
No, Susan, I don't think that's the case here. I think the bigger question's ultimately going to become, right now you have two properties that take access off of Atlantic Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And
I drove through it last year when this came up.
Yeah. Well, see, when we looked at that last year, we were looking at what we understood as that house to the south taking access. But this is something different. This is a case where I think they're combining two properties, taking, I think, perhaps two houses down and replacing it with one. So I think we want to see the whole site plan. You know, it may actually not make sense for us to give access here, but it may make perfect sense. But without looking at it, I really don't want to speculate. So
Right. I always think it's best to see things myself.
So anyway, Arlene, if you can distribute that to all of the board members before our next meeting, so everybody has a chance to look at that, that'd be appreciated.
Great, we'll do.
All right, Town Line Road. Rick?
Yes, thank you, Francis. We've been discussing Town Line Road as a potential opportunity to change the type of access and use of the road. Right now, it is a fire road and it is a four-wheel drive access road. There's really two sections that seem to be at issue. One is from the just north of Industrial Road. So if you take Industrial Road down past LTV, you will then hit a little kind of a turnaround area and a sign, fire road only, pavement ends, and you can go down there and make a left and head up to the highway, or make a right and go down the back side of the airport. And that's Town Line Road. And that's an unimproved road. And that section runs through some really beautiful nature reserve areas all the way down to Merchants Path, where the road becomes paved again for a section. That's one area that you could control access to and possibly make some parking areas so people would have responsible access to the property for hiking, mountain biking, picnicking, hunting, things of those natures. As there is some really nice, beautiful reserve areas and open space. I think it's also a water recharge area. And right now, the four-wheel access isn't as bad as I last saw it, and the littering isn't as bad, but there are some sections where there's been some illegal dumping. The roads do get rutted out. There was one area where it looks like there's some kind of an ongoing, rather large-scale fire pit, which could be a pretty bad fire hazard. So, the discussion that was brought up last time was about maybe creating some small parking areas. And I'm a little closer to sharing this and maybe collaborating with a couple of people to do some site visits and maybe, recommend a specific site or two. But because of the sectional nature of the entire road, and it's quite lengthy and it takes quite a long time to drive, at 15 miles an hour on this bumpy dirt road from Industrial Road down to Merchants Path, it's a pretty big area and it is pretty out of sight. So it is prone to dumping, and historically it was bad. It's definitely gotten cleaned up a bit. I'm glad to see it looking much healthier from a garbage and pollution perspective. But it does point to the fact that if you were going to try and control access, you would need multiple points. The other section, you continue down Town Line north of Merchants Path, and the road goes to dirt again. And there's another section down towards Division Street and Middle Line Highway that also has some beautiful reserve on both sides. And you could do a two-gate type system or two-gate control with a parking area to access. So those are the two main sections to consider. There have been some maps sent. They don't perfectly line up. If you do a general Google map, you can see the whole line. But when you kind of line the ones that were sent up by one of the neighbors in the area, they do make sense. They're just not perfectly aligned, so it looks a little confusing, like Town Line Road is disconnected. It's not. It's a perfectly straight road all the way down to Sag Harbor from Route 27. So that's kind of the general idea, and there does appear to be plenty of space to create, a few parking spots at these different locations. And I do think it would improve the environmental health of the area. One of the main questions that has come up is access by first responders. I am not sure what fire districts these respective sections of the road are in and what type of considerations we would have to give for access for first responders to these areas. Francis, I know you're in the East Hampton department. I don't know if that southern section is East Hampton and the northern section is Sag Harbor. But I don't know if you would have any information on that or might be able to help getting some of that information as part of our decision-making process.
Part of it is Bridgehampton, I believe.
I see. Okay.
That would be over on the Wainscott end of it.
Right. Okay.
Also, it would be part of Sagaponack? Town Line
They don't
Road?
have a fire department. They don't have a fire department.
Oh, okay. But Rick, I emailed everybody today because I actually tried to go and find the area that you were talking about, Rick, and you responded to me. But I was wondering, from the maps that were sent to us, I could not make heads or tails of this. So I started to enter from various different roadways, which of course led to the dirt road. And what I was wondering, and I think it would be very helpful, as is the case with the Atlantic Avenue, is to actually go to the areas that you're talking about, meet if all of us would like to see this. I noticed that there is a tremendous area of town preserve there. And are we talking about going to the town preserve, to the state and asking for space to put parking in? I would really like to get a handle on this of what we're talking about. And
it would all be on trustee property, Susan.
I'm sorry?
If we were to do something like this, in my own thought process, it would all be done on trustee property. And it would provide responsible access to town and I believe county property. I think there's town preserve for East Hampton, for Southampton, and some county recharge property in there.
Right, so if it's county...
That's all. It's really just preventing, unnecessary, irresponsible dumping or use of motorized vehicles in
No, and I think it's great, and I understand.
Providing public access.
I understand, and I think it's great, and I did say in my email to you that I think it's a good idea, but I'd like to have more clarification as to where this actually is.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm really quite there yet, so, it's going a little slower than I would hope, but I think there are a couple of good spots, and I'll present them, or if you want to take a look at them with me after I get them a little more fine-tuned, I'm happy to go there and meet with you.
Okay, because I just ended up on dirt roads, and I'm not really sure where.
Well, that's really, Town Line Road really is a dirt road, and there's a couple of other paper roads that go through there that I believe are trustee roads and make for great, hiking trails and mountain biking trails and things like that. So, it could be an opportunity to create, just a little more responsible layer of access.
No, and I think that's a good thing, but I really would like to, is this, I know Town Line Road from real estate. I know that it becomes, dirt, it's tarmac.
Right.
But the area that you're talking about where the debris is being deposited, I'd like to see that area, and we have
you can actually park at the end of Merchant's Path and walk to the south about 100 yards, and there's a clearing where the burning pit is. That's pretty easy to access, and that road just continues all the way up. But you should have four-wheel drive to do it.
Yeah, I stopped.
It is a little tricky.
I'm not willing to go over the dirt road part. It was a little risky looking. So, but
yeah, no, it's definitely four-wheel drive terrain.
Yeah, okay. Well, if you are going to go, I would very much like to see the areas that you've been discussing with the neighbors. It gives us a better, I think,
Great.
all of us.
I'll when I get it a little more refined in terms of location, I'll give you a shout and we can go take a look.
That would be great. Thank you.
Rick, do you know how, who cut the road? You know, it's a fire road, so I'm assuming it's, was cut at some point. And do you know who did it and what relationship with the trustees they had and any of that?
You know, John, it's actually a pretty well-worn, pretty level road, you know, from the end of Industrial Road down to Merchants Path. There's a couple spots that have been washed out. There's some, you know, illegal dumping of some black pine stumps that create a unique situation there and a little drive-around area and this little burning field that I described. But overall, it was pretty well done. It is marked as Town Line Road on numerous maps. It is street signaged as Town Line Road, particularly at the intersection of Merchants Path and Town Line Road. So from a general perspective, I do believe it to be, you know, our road, our property. It seems to be the only roadway thoroughfare that goes from south to north, north to south in the area of any significance. So I think it is something that is reasonably to be thought of as our jurisdiction. I may run it by Steve Borner just to double check any possible differences. And the power lines do cross there in the approximate location of some easement discussions we've had with LIPA. So, and it's right along the backside of the airport where it should be. So, everything seems to line up in that regard.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, Rick. Much appreciated.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you.
Wainscott Pond, we have a request to renew the trustee permit W number 1/2020 issued to the Wainscott Pond project for sediment sampling in Wainscott Pond.
So Francis, I'm assuming they never acted on the permit last year.
It sounds like it.
I mean, if they haven't acted on the permit, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't renew the permit.
You want to make a motion?
I agree.
I have a question. They're looking for renewal on the permit, and was there I know they had the agent came before us, but was there a contractor that was ever assigned to the project? And would that help us to move this along? Is there, some kind of a stated goal here with the renewal application?
It appears they weren't able to do the work, I believe, and that they're trying, Dr. Gold was helping them, trying to get it moving. They gave us a pretty complete presentation last year that, yes, this is the agent, the contractor who is trying to renew it, an engineering company?
It's the engineering company. So Rick, to answer your question, I believe it was the engineering company that was doing the sampling.
Okay. Thank you.
So where were we left on that? I'm sorry, Jim.
I don't know. We've already issued a permit on this thing once. If they weren't able to get it, we could go back and ask them for more clarification. But since we've already issued a permit on this, personally, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't renew it.
I agree.
I'd make a motion to renew it for one more time and give them a chance to get it going.
Yeah, and I can reach out to their engineer and see exactly what the plan is on when they plan to schedule this.
I'd be curious to know why they weren't able to do this over a 1-year period. But okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No? Okay. We'll reissue the permit. And you'll talk to them, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, great. Move on to payment of the bills. Excuse me. We have the East Hampton Marina, $105 for gas. East Hampton Marina, $504 to replace water pump, part labor not under warranty for damage. East Hampton Star, $490 for 2 ads for the largest clam contest.
200.
One beacon,
Sorry, did you say 400?
490 is what I have here.
Oh, and I have 245.
I have 245 as well.
Arlene? Arlene?
I have,
Yes, the second bill came in this morning. I didn't want to burden everyone with another agenda. No, it gets crazy. So we just received this morning for the second week. So it's $245 per week.
So 490.
okay.
Yes, and I added the bottom one this morning on, and Francis gets to it, an antenna for the Montauk boat.
All right. One Beacon Insurance Corporation, $7,350 for the annual insurance for the 2 pump out boats, covered up to $1 million each. One Beacon Insurance Company Corp., $3,600, additional $1 million insurance coverage. Riverhead Building Supply, $35.30, stakes to post shellfish license required signs. Freeport Marine Supply, $209, an antenna for the Montauk boat. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
Make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I don't have anything for minutes, no financial reports, and report of the clerk on nada. Anybody have anything they want to discuss before we say goodnight?
I do.
Just
I make a motion to close the meeting.
Wait, whoa. I would like to just close the meeting this evening with one comment for the largest clam contest. And I wanted to thank, I think we all feel the same way. I want to thank Arlene Tezar, our office administrator, and Lori Miller-Carr. Without the two of them, we would not have a successful largest clam contest. So I really want to thank you both. And from Ben and Jim and John and all of the trustees, thank you so much for everything that you do.
I have a couple of things I'd like to bring up.
Okay, John.
First one is, should we be taking down the turtle signs now?
The green ones? Or we have permanent ones? In fact, I just saw some
guys,
permanent
on
ones
the
today.
if I could stick something in, John, thanks for bringing up turtle signs. We have a lot more turtle signs available. If anybody has any areas that they felt were left out, they can forward those locations to me. I've spoken to the town. We can put those on the map. We get some additional signs put up.
Well, I'm talking about the
turtle campaign signs.
Yeah, I mean, we want to get them out of there at some point. I'm not when is the appropriate time.
I think now.
They're still moving.
Well, I was told by Turtle Rescue of the Hamptons that they go through into the early fall. So I was figuring by maybe mid-October. And some people have agreed to keep them and put them up for next year. So I kept track of who I delivered them to or who picked them up.
All right, so sometime mid-October, we should start picking them up.
In a couple of weeks, yeah. All right, and that's funny that you should bring it up because Jim, I found another one of the nice new yellow signs in an area that I didn't before see it. So I think they're still putting them up.
Now they've got all the ones that they put up.
Someone has background.
I know, echo. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
All the ones we had have been put up, but we still have a significant number, and my thoughts were, I'd like to get, if there are any more places that we'd like to put them. If not, I'd like to be able to turn these signs back to SOFO, because I'm sure they could probably have use for them. They may want to do something in town of Southampton.
Okay. Do you know if we have any in Lazy Point? I don't recall seeing them.
Yes, we do.
We do. Okay. All right.
Okay, and another thing is, I don't know if anybody else got this, but I got a notice from Long Island Nature Organization, Mike Bettini's group and John Turner's group. They're doing looking to do a coyote survey, and they've got the Museum of Natural History is agreed to do the analysis, and they're trying to raise $6,000 to pay for the materials. I can send around, the notice I got so everybody can take a look at it, and I just wonder if it's something we might want to contribute to. One of the routes they're looking at for coyotes to come onto Long Island is through Fisher's Island, and there have been coyote sightings in Watermill, so it might be something that affects East Hampton and would likely probably affect a lot of trustee lands as well. So anyway, I'll send that around and we can kick that around at the next meeting. And finally, I just like to talk a little bit about there was a fuel spill from a boat in 3 Mile Harbor last week. Just wanted to let everybody know what happened. It was the fault of the boat itself. There was the boat was at the commercial dock, waiting for a truck to come and fill it up. It was a boat that's docked at Gardner's Marina. That's too big to access any fuel dock at any marina, so that the town allows boats in that circumstance to come to the town dock and get filled up by a truck. But the truck hadn't arrived yet. The captain was transferring fuel from one tank to another to make room for the fuel coming from the truck, and failed to shut the pump off in time, and about 150 gallons of diesel fuel went into the water. The tide was running pretty strong at the time. They tried to sop it up as much as they could with absorbent pads that were made available by the harbor master's office, and that didn't really do very much good, but they tried. The DEC was notified, the Coast Guard was notified. They both came on the scene later on, and I spoke to the harbor masters. I spoke to Ed Michaels and Tim Treadwell, and they sort of gave me, the details of this thing. So I spoke to Ed a little bit about, policies of what should be on site. I mean, I'll just back up a minute. What the arrangement had been at Gann Road was that there was typically one fuel company that had been fueling boats, and that company had brought a containment boom and absorbent pads and a hazard mat containment tank to put the pads in after they were contaminated, and left them on site at the harbor master's office in the eventuality that there was a spill. Apparently that company has now been absorbed by a larger company, and the agreement that the harbor masters had with the first company is not necessarily transferred to the larger company, but the material is still there. And as I said, some of it was used to try to contain this spill a little bit. So I talked, Ed Michaels sort of gave me a rundown of the history of, or the more recent history of trying to establish a town policy on fueling large vessels from trucks town-wide, both in Montauk and 3 Mile Harbor, and how difficult that's been. But I'm reaching out to David Lease and Ed Michaels to see if maybe we can get together again and try to revisit this issue and come up with some policies on, what's allowed, when it's allowed, how it's allowed, and what kind of preventative measures can be put in place to try to avoid a problem or react to a problem if one arises. Just one note of good news on that is that a lot of that spill the tide was coming in, a lot of it wrapped around into the area that the shellfish hatchery nursery is. And there were a lot of scallops in the water there that were in nets waiting to be seeded. And it didn't they apparently didn't affect, none of them died. So hopefully by now that spill has been evaporated and diluted to the point that it's no longer an issue. But
John, I know that Barley reached out to us who are oyster farmers and advised the 3 Mile Harbor oyster farm members to not go in and clean their crate. What has happened to those oysters? Do you know? Did they survive?
Well, the scallops are the most sensitive shellfish. So if the scallops made it, the oysters would make it too. I think he just didn't want people. Those oysters might have absorbed some of the fuel, the diesel fuel, and take a while to run through their bodies and clean themselves out. So I think he didn't want people.
I was just curious. So the oysters can clean themselves, even though there was oil spill. They can survive.
At some point, no, obviously, but it depends on how much, was there. Most of the diesel fuel is floating on the surface. I believe most of those oysters are, it's certainly below the surface. I don't know how many are still floating and how many have been dropped to the bottom by now, but.
No, we're still up.
Okay, well, you're still below the surface. So if the scallops survived, the oysters will survive, but they might not taste very good for a while.
All right. Thank you, John.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
This is Rick. It is a season where a lot of bigger boats are starting to move south, and we could see a lot more fuelings taking place. And it would seem that it would be appropriate to have a boom there that can be deployed. We know that the town has the John boats there, which are great. The aluminum dories with the outboards on them that could be used to deploy. But it just doesn't seem like there's a real plan, a safety plan when something like this happens, or the ability to deploy the boom. Oftentimes the current and the wind are fighting each other. It's really rough and choppy there. So it just seems like there is some importance to try to move this forward with the town and the harbor master's office. So if there's anything I could do to participate with you or help out, it just seems like a meeting with David and, maybe meeting on site there sometime could be really helpful, and just make sure we keep our eye on this, because it would be, it's bad to see that, this diesel fuel got around the corner. It possibly impacted a lot of the scallops that were going to be put out, and also impacted all the farmers there. So, I take this as pretty serious, and it seems like we do have a void in our policy, and the trustees should be a part of this. These are our waters, our harbor, and it's being impacted by this. So, I'd like to just make myself available to help out and help, the 3 Mile Committee if I could, or the Harbor Management Committee may need to weigh in on this, because it is, a pretty big issue.
But I think this is something that, has to have participation by the town, trustees, probably Coast Guard, DC, possibly. There's sort of jurisdictional issues with cleanup and spills and things. I'm not really intimately familiar with them, but I think.
Well, a marina that fuels has very strict guidelines, and has to do certain reporting, has to have certain equipment available. And I just don't see us having anywhere near the same standard right now.
Well, that's why I reached out to David to try to get together and revisit the issue.
Right. No, thank you for doing that. Thank you very much.
John, just a real quick question. Who are the first responders on this sort of thing? You have the boats there looking for a boom, but who deploys all this?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm looking at my notes here, talking to Ed, and we said a lot of things, but one thing he did say is the Coast Guard is responsible for fuel spill cleanup. And
Yeah, how many hours does it take them to get here?
for that, I believe it's the responsibility of the boat as well. So I'm not really sure about all these. I mean, Bill might know more about this, probably knows more about this than I do. He certainly knows more about this than I do, but
Bill, you're on.
That one particular spot, you have so much current down there. When you get too much current, booms are useless. They just get buried. Having a shellfish hatchery there and that much current, it almost makes it a pretty poor choice of a place to fuel a boat. I can't think of an alternative. It used to be, I think from what I read about your notes when you sent them out, John, that there had been a change of ownership in the oil company, that it had been a locally owned company and they had worked out some protocols. But from what your notes said, it had been absorbed by a larger company and there was possibility that this got lost in the shuffle.
yeah, but keep in mind that no truck was involved in this particular stuff.
No, I understand.
Right.
No, the guy was making room to put the fuel, and again, you get into what action was taken against the person that was responsible. Were there licensed personnel observing the transfer of fuel? I guess any oil spill,
Well,
if it's
the harbor masters did issue a violation of the town code. The last I talked to them, they weren't sure what the DEC had done and the Coast Guard in terms of violations.
Yeah, generally, if it's in the water, the Coast Guard handled it, and if it's on land, the DEC handled it. But the Coast Guard always took this stuff very seriously.
Hey, John. Yeah. Another thought might be to be able to deploy that boom and quadrant off the cove where the hatchery is, so you keep it at least in the channel and maybe deal with it when it flushed out into the belly of the harbor or outside the mouth if it didn't already wash up. But, maybe there is a way to have a safety plan that would protect the aquaculture activities to the south.
Yeah, I think part of the problem, as Bill said, is the tide. If a spill happens, which this one did, when the tide is running, you know how the tide runs there, Rick.
Yeah, it boils through there.
And how fast anybody can move to get booms in place before that fuel just distributes itself wherever.
It's a tough spot. It's not a great spot really for fueling, as Bill pointed out. It's something we need to look at.
Plus, I did have a little talk with Ed. Did talk about booms and what they're designed for, and they're not necessarily designed for diesel fuel. Diesel fuel is very light. The booms are designed for heavy oil, basically.
Yeah.
You're not going to necessarily contain diesel or gasoline spill with a containment boom.
Yeah.
So I don't know what other options are available other than the absorbent.
No, it's tricky, and the state usually closes shellfishing around, fueling areas like marinas. And now we have our hatchery near a fueling area. It's a little tricky.
not to mention the pump out tank right next door.
No, I mean, if they're going to move, if they're going to make the hatchery there, this is going to have to be dealt with before that happens.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit of a conflict.
Is this the only place that boats are refueled? Is this the main place that they're refueled? There's no other location?
Sag Harbor stopped doing it on the Long Wharf, so a lot of the vessels from Sag Harbor started coming over to East Hampton 3 Mile to take on fuel. So the use has expanded recently in 3 Mile because it's near the Gardner's Bay, outer channel to keep moving to Montauk and Point south or north. And you have deep water, 11-foot at mean low water access right up to the commercial dock. So it's a very convenient place to do it. Unfortunately, it's just a difficult place to do it safely.
So there is no other place, Rick, that people can fuel?
Not really in 3 Mile. You don't have any place with deep water and access for bigger boats. And theoretically, that spot on the north side is supposed to be made available to a commercial fishing vessel. So I'm not sure why that spot hasn't been leased out recently.
That spot there was always like the emergency spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I know all the kids and locals, fish there too, so it's a popular fishing spot.
Yeah, it was left open by design to accommodate a vessel that had engine trouble or something like that, or
right.
Whatever. But
I think there's 3 spots to the south, and a few around. The smaller boats are around the corner.
No, the issue of having the shelf, an enlarged shellfish hatchery right next to a fueling station with that tide is, the water in right in that cove.
Yeah, it spins right in there.
It's got to be looked at. I mean, these boats should be able to be fueled someplace.
Well, they can be fueled at the Sag Harbor Yacht Club, so they don't have to come over, but it is preferential on a volume basis to possibly work with a land-based operator. So that seems to be the attraction.
Yeah, it's probably a price. They're probably getting a better price.
I think that's a lot of what it comes down to.
I did ask Ed about how much traffic was coming to East Hampton, to 3 Mile Harbor from Sag Harbor to be fueled. He didn't feel there was that much. He felt there was some, but not too
No,
much.
it picked up a fair amount, John, I believe, and I may be mistaken, but I thought the reason being was that Sag Harbor land-based fueling was discontinued 2 or 3 years ago, and you definitely see vessels coming down the channel from that Gardner's Bay, and then will turn around and tie up on the commercial dock for fueling and then depart. So these aren't 3 Mile vessels. There's not a lot of big slips in 3 Mile Harbor. East Hampton Point has a few, Gardner's Marina has a couple, but there's really not a lot of big boat slips in 3 Mile.
Rick, how large are these boats that are coming in?
I'd say anywhere from 50 to 100 feet. So some of them are pretty substantial. And some of them, probably could fit at East Hampton Point or Harbor Marina Fuel Dock, but it's close. You need high tide, and 50, 60 feet is probably about the biggest you're going to get into some of our local fueling facilities. And the East Hampton Marina, way down in the south, doesn't have the water depth. They're more of an outboard fueling center.
Well, there's some pretty big boats down in Gardner's. This boat was from Gardner's.
Yeah, that's one of the 3 big boat slips down there.
Yeah.
That I would call like a pocket yacht, so to speak. So there's maybe 10 or so in the whole harbor. I think that would be over 75, 80 feet.
Should these boats be paying a fee to come in and dock and gas up at that area, potentially.
Well, I'm sorry, Ben, could you please repeat?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Rick. Maybe something we should discuss too is like maybe these yachts should pay some sort of fee to have access to gas up there, potentially.
I'm not sure that's a trustee issue. I mean, the dock is the town, the surface of the commercial dock is town owned. Town has dock policy. I mean, it could be, we could influence the situation being part of the discussion, but I think that would have to be, basically.
The vessels sit in trustee waters, so I think we should have some say to it. I think there is trustee jurisdiction involved.
I agree, but I don't think we can dictate.
No, it's a cooperation.
So we'll stay involved.
All right, sounds like there's some work ahead of us on this one.
Yeah, you're going to follow up, John?
I have a call into David.
Okay.
It goes from there.
All right. Anything else?
Francis,
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Everybody.
Okay.
Third.
I just want to say thank you to Matt Chapman for hosting us tonight. And
Francis, if I may.
All in favor?
Francis?
Aye.
Aye. Francis?
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.